I was pretty damn optimistic about season 5 of The Boys going into it. And initially I think that hype was pretty warranted. Like, I legit made a whole video about the premiere in A-Train just because of just how good that episode was. But as the season kept going week by week, I started to get increasingly worried about whether or not this show would actually stick its landing. And after sitting with that episode for a few hours now, and writing out this script randomly as I sit on a plane incredibly sleep deprived, I think the answer to the question asked in this video's title is, it's complicated. If you've been enjoying this and my other content, maybe consider liking and subscribing. It's truly the best way to help this channel grow and reach more people. Anyways, back to your regularly scheduled programming. Okay, just starting with the positives, I still think the best part about this show are its characters. I genuinely think a lot of the bigger send-offs this season were done pretty well. Obviously you had the A-Train one, which I talked about to death at this point, but I also really enjoyed the Deeps. We watched this cockroach of a man survive over and over again throughout these seasons, just for him this season to finally get more and more pathetic and lose everything episode by episode just because he refuses to take any accountability for any of his actions throughout the show, before dying at the hands of a sea creature, which at one point was probably the only thing that actually liked him, as Annie watched, which I think was kind of poetic seeing as where they started off at. I also really enjoyed Firecracker's send-off. I know a lot of people weren't really fans of that specific episode, but I mean, on the whole, it was pretty solid for me. Her section in particular though was the standout. The fact that she literally rejected Christ 3 times before finally giving up in her beliefs for Homelander, just for him to kill her immediately after, is some amazing and very poetic writing. Kimiko's kinda cringe lines aside, I also really enjoyed watching her development as a character this season, seeing her really voice out what she wants in her future as a person. I also really think Daveed Diggs as O-Father was a great addition to the cast this season. He literally steals like every scene he's in, to the point where I wish he was introduced in an earlier season. There were also a lot of great one-on-one moments between characters, a lot of those that have just been kind of building for like a few seasons now, that also showed that this show, in spurts at least, can still have writing as sharp and emotional as it's always been. The issue is that a lot of those moments are very far and in between, because honestly a lot of this season felt like it was just set up, and not for the finale, but instead an entirely different show. In this era of 8-episode seasons, it was already going to be kinda hard to really flesh out every character and plot point in this show, but it's even harder when so much of the runtime this season is instead used to set up a spin-off. Honestly, at a certain point, all the Vought Rising backdooring really started to just piss me off. Look man, I like Jensen Ackles as much as the next guy. Hell, if you ask my sisters, they say that's their literal other brother. But way too much time this season was spent on him and setting up his spin-off. The constant flipping back on what side he stands on, whether he hates Homelander or not, bringing a bunch of his Vought Rising co-stars and lore, and the constant trying to get us to sympathize with him, a literal racist piece of shit, and Stormfront, a literal Nazi who we spent a whole season rightfully hating.
Fuck that Nazi bitch.
It low-key just got to the point where I wish he was just never unfrozen this season, or actually just did die by the virus in the 2nd episode. And we instead spent all that time fleshing out a character like, I don't know, Ryan, who was like only in like 3 episodes this season, or fleshing out Sister Sage's master plan, which in the end was kinda dumb for the smartest person alive. And it's even more annoying because Soulja Boy literally plays no part in the finale. You could low-key say the same exact thing for the entire Chase Down for V1 storyline that takes up a bulk of this season. Because besides establishing a bunch of Vought Rising stuff, what actually changed once Homelander actually got it? I mean, it's built up like this massive game changer, but like, it's kinda the same Homelander we've gotten all season, personality wise at least, and he's already the strongest in the verse, so there's no crazy feats because of it. It again just kinda seems like it was more Vought Rising lore than a real payoff for the events of The Boys. So yeah, with all that kind of in mind, I kinda went into this finale really skeptical that it would actually be able to satisfy me. But honestly, for the most part, it kinda did. Like, at least for me, it was just a pretty good episode. It had its issues, but I wouldn't say I didn't enjoy it. Like, yes, the Gen V kids are just a glorified cameo as Uber drivers, which is kinda strange seeing how the 2nd season of that show's ending kinda positioned them to play a pretty big role in this season. But I mean, the show's called The Boys, I guess. And I also think the first part of this episode was moving really fast, especially once we got into the White House. probably could have been drawn out a bit more and maybe had more soups in there as actual threats before they got to Homelander. Kind of like what some of the promo would make you believe going into this season. But I think the final encounter with Butcher and Homelander was pretty good, all things considered. I mean, this was a confrontation that was like, what, 7 years in the making? And I think it accomplished what it was trying to, at least for the most part, even with the kind of inconsistent power scaling in it. It was really cathartic to watch this man who literally had all the power in the world be reduced to this powerless, pathetic, groveling loser that he's always kind of been under the suit and powers. And his death in the end was incredibly satisfying to watch, and gross. But even then, I was still watching like, damn, this is moving really fast. Like seemingly the climax of the entire show has been building up to happened with like, what, almost 30 minutes left in the show? But that's because the climax and final battle of the show wasn't ever actually Butcher versus Homelander. It was Butcher versus Huey, the two driving forces of the entire show since the beginning. And though there's obviously still punches in this fight, the main fight is more of an ideological one. Butcher at this point in the show has nothing left to live for. I mean, he finally accomplished his goal of getting revenge for Becca. Ryan, his kinda surrogate son, wants nothing to do with him, and he literally just lost the only thing that actually cares for him, Terror, like 5 minutes before. There's nothing left to pull at those remaining few strings of humanity to stop him from releasing that virus. And though Huey tries his best to reason with him, everyone knows just how headstrong both of them are in their resolves and beliefs. There was unfortunately just never gonna be a peaceful outcome. I honestly went into this finale knowing that even though Billy Butcher is kinda the protagonist of this show, there's no way he ends this episode alive. I mean, the guy's done a lot of messed up shit in his time. He kinda did just seem like the type that'd be redeemed through death. But it honestly did catch me off guard on how it specifically happened. Low-key, part of me thinks that Butcher did want to be stopped, because again, he really had nothing going for him in life at that point, once he finally defeated Homelander. I think in a lot of ways, that final scene between them brought both of their stories full circle in a very satisfying way. Look, it's no secret that in its later seasons, the show has kinda declined a bit. Honestly, you could make the case that the show's gotten a little bit worse each season since season 2. And yeah, I could probably sit here nitpicking shit all day, like the raunchy sex jokes, or again, the very inconsistent pacing or power scaling this season, or Black Noir 2 being a pretty nothing character that probably didn't need to exist, or them spending screen time in the penultimate episode to watch two D-list soups sniff each other's asses instead of dedicating that time to literally anything else. But like, in a vacuum, this episode exceeded most of the expectations I had for it going in. Granted, those expectations weren't all that high at the time, but still. For the most part, all the characters in this episode got the endings I think they deserved. And if this was the end of the franchise, then I think it would be a pretty solid conclusion, flaws and all. But the issue, again, is that I know it's not. We already know we're getting more stuff in this world like Vought Rising, and whatever the hell The Boys Mexico is. Personally, if we were just giving out spin-offs like Oprah, I probably wouldn't have canceled Gen V, especially with them not really getting a conclusion in this show or their own show, but that's just me, I guess. It's honestly quite ironic that The Boys started off as a satire of all these never-ending superhero franchises, just to kind of become that. But even so, at its best, The Boys was one of the sharpest, most entertaining, and probably one of the best shows on television. Plus, it's probably the finale that Clara would have wanted. Thanks once again for making it to the end of this. If I didn't touch on everything on the season or was like missing like crucial things, my fault. I'm literally running on fumes right now. But I'm genuinely gonna miss this show because all things considered, it was a pretty fun ride. And I'm pretty happy for the most part with how a lot of the Surviving Boys' finales happened. But what did you guys think of the final season and the finale? Let me know in the comments down below. And don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys again eventually, lol.